It seems like sometimes this conversation might go a lot differently, whether you're sitting in the urban core or in a rural setting. Is it possible, just from a legal standpoint, for there to be different restrictions, different laws, different allowances for different parts of the state, depending on the different needs? I know we've had our prosecutor, our police chief, talking a lot about this inalienable right in Missouri to own a gun, infringing on their ability to enforce felons, to keep felons from having guns. Different needs in different parts of the state. Can the state legislature serve both?
So Missouri's interesting in terms of the First Amendment because we have amended the state constitution. Last year, Amendment 5.
Second Amendment, I think you meant. You said the first, but you mean the second.
The Second Amendment,
yeah.
Forgive me. So we amended the state constitution, which declared the right to bear arms an inalienable right, and that effectively nullified municipal bans on guns. The city of St. Louis had a ban on open carry. Last October, there was an open carry demonstration. Amendment 5 indicates that open carry now applies statewide. So a constitutional amendment makes it harder for municipalities to narrowly tailor regulations to, for example, a urban center, and it does tend to unify the landscape so that across the state the same rules apply. Now, Amendment 5 also is important to keep in mind. Once a right's declared inalienable, the courts will review any regulations under strict scrutiny. That doesn't mean that all regulations are automatically invalid. If they are narrowly tailored to compelling interests like life and safety, they can actually survive strict scrutiny. So what we can see now, even under Amendment 5, is perhaps new regulations that will be held to a higher standard of scrutiny, but it'll be harder for local municipalities like St. Louis City to enact its own restrictions on guns.
Can you tell us why these issues are important in Jefferson City? What was the concern with lawmakers with the city of St. Louis's ban on open carry, for instance? Is this philosophical? Is this preventative?
Well, I wasn't in the legislature when that occurred, but I think when you're talking statewide and the effects in certain regions, I think you really have to look at the family makeup of those regions that are suffering from gun violence and make a direct correlation with the value of life. Is there a two-parent family? I mean, because when it comes to raising a family, values, even gun control values, you know, my children, I have 4 children under the age of 9. They know what to do if they see a gun. You know, they already know gun safety. So, you know, it comes along with family values. So I think to take this on a state level, you know, we're probably gonna stick behind, you know, make sure we protect the inalienable right for all of our citizens.
So Becky, if it was just moms and dads demanding action, maybe this would go away.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm glad we're talking about Amendment 5. Right now, this week, the Missouri Supreme Court is being sued. Missouri is being sued by 3 felons who now say that because of Amendment 5, they now have the rights to have their guns back. You know, and these felons are dangerous people. The 3 felons, 2 of them have been charged with unlawful use and possession of a weapon. One was charged with possession of drugs. Another has served time in jail. And now, because of Amendment 5, we are quite possibly giving these dangerous felons their gun rights back. So I think it is extremely unfortunate that this is something that our lawmakers are doing. It puts our law enforcement officers in jeopardy, and frankly, everybody who lives in this state.
And unintended consequences, or is this concerning you? Is this something you would like to take on when you do go to Jefferson City?
I probably will not be taking that on. You know, if a felon wants a gun, whether he goes to petition the court or if he steals one, it's not going to change the outcome. We have to make sure that we have a well-armed, responsible, you know, citizenry that can protect their own rights, their own individual rights from others.
It used to be that we could at least all agree that we want to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, and now we're at the spot where we're debating what kinds of criminals should have guns, and we're making it easier for criminals to get their hands on guns. They don't have to steal them anymore. They can just sue the state, and our taxpayer dollars are going to fight those lawsuits. So we have really come to a point in this country, in this city, in this state, and we have a gun violence epidemic. And we have got to think about reasonable things that we can do. And people have woken up to this. Everybody thinks, you know, there but for the grace of God go I. It can happen to anybody. And so, you know, what I love about our organization is that we have put forward these reasonable goals. And what's surprising to me is the pushback, you know, that we get on this reasonable.
So I'm curious if your research has looked at any of the division and whether or not the gap is widening or not when it comes to opinions on this issue.
It depends on the question, and it depends on the way the question is asked. I mean, that's, as you well know, one of the standard characteristics of any attempt to get public
So are we getting
opinion.
closer or farther from solutions?
Well, actually, I think we're potentially closer, because I will come back to the fact that I think that the majority of people, gun owners and people who have very strong views about gun control, will agree on issues around safety. They will agree on issues around protection of people who can't otherwise protect themselves. They'll agree about reducing access to vulnerable people like those with suicidal ideation or in a suicidal crisis. They'll agree about improving the opportunities for safety for children. For example, if you ask people if we had technical solutions that would allow only authorized people to use a gun, and so an unauthorized person like a child couldn't actually use the gun, would that be something that you would support? The majority of people would say yes, and so, including the majority of gun owners. And I think what we need to do is, is move away. As a public health person, I would say we need to look for where there is common ground, look for where we have opportunities to talk responsibly about this, and say, what is it that we all want to do? We want to reduce the tragedy. We don't want people dying. And if we can focus on that, and then say, how do we balance? Because in every society, right through history, particularly when you think of public policy and public health policy, particularly from my perspective, it is always a balance between the right of an individual and the right of a society, the responsibilities of an individual within a society. And we, I think, can be reasonable people around this, no matter what particular view you have on one or other partisan issue. Focusing on preventing people from dying is something we can all agree about.
And in some cases, are you saying the individual gives up some of those rights?
I think historically that's always been the case. In fact, we can look at lots of examples where, from a public health perspective, to protect the public, there are laws on our books that allow the state to incarcerate somebody against their will if that person is a threat to the public in general, such as with a lethal infection as an example.
We'll leave it there for now, but I know you've got about another 6 months or so that Washington University is looking at this issue, an issue that we've heard in the news lately there's not a lot of research on. So we will leave it there for now. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate you being here tonight. Until next time, stay tuned.